Welcome to Game Guru Twitch broadcast some number over 10. One day I'll actually figure all this out. So today we're going to talk about something of which I know not, because this time I'm actually going to go straight to the forums, don't you know? So you'll remember last week we talked about buildings and doors, and holes where doors ought to go, and how to fill those holes with doors that ought to go in said holes, and how to open and close those doors using a script. But what we're going to talk about this time is whatever anybody wants to talk about, and I've asked people to post it on the forums, so we're going to read that now. Hopefully you can all see the forum. And I'm currently looking at one that I am quite tempted to work on, actually, because it's something I could pretty confidently demonstrate in 30 minutes. A bit on HUD graphics, yes. I could actually play around with that. I don't think I'll be able to get that done in 30 minutes, but I could certainly show you some commands, have a little play around with HUD graphics. And it just so happens that there is actually a game that uses some HUD graphics commands, so that would be a great place to start. So maybe that, plus the spawning. We already covered buildings. I don't really want to cover 3D modelling, but I may ask Ravy to do that for us, so he can show a little bit in, say, Blender, which was released on Steam quite recently. It's free, and it's a really great 3D modeler. You should definitely check it out if you're into that sort of stuff. And something that was posted a couple of days ago, an emphatic plea for us to explore the character creator. Now, some of you may know that Game Guru has a character creator built in, so you can make your own characters. And what it looks like is we have a user who wants to go to the nth degree, being able to change the clothing of the characters, maybe using make human characters, bringing them in, adding the rigs from our existing software to them, and then working out, you know, how many of those characters you have before your engine starts slowing down, to which I usually answer how long is a piece of string. But a great question. I think right now with Game Guru, you could throw in about 5 or 6 characters at once attacking you, and then you can respawn them later and reuse them, or put them really, you know, further on in your level and hide them and spawn them when you get closer. So I'd say 5 or 6 right now at about 3,000 polygons per character if you was creating your own characters. The reason I'm not choosing this last one, in addition to the fact that, you know, there's been requests before this one that I should probably work on, is it's pretty high-tech stuff. Being able to take a model, a character geometry plus textures, and then change it all by using your own modelling software, and then edit meshes, applying UV coordinates, then texturing it, and then making sure that it all renders correctly. It's pretty advanced stuff. So for the most part, for Game Guru users, we simply go to the store or look in the entity library and find some character or some building or some object that we want to use, and then drop it in and actually make a game out of it. This is pretty advanced bro stuff. I'm not saying I won't do a Twitch broadcast on it, but I probably need to do some research first. I need to break out something like Blender, model some stuff, bring it in, import it using the import modeler, or straight using the character creator and go into the folders and add the raw files there. But you know what? I think I should give that one to Ravy, because he's very intimately familiar with the character creator and modelers in general. So that's definitely one for him. So if you know you've got an impending broadcast from Ravy, definitely remind him about this, because he'll be happy to demonstrate. What I'm going to show you is HUD graphics through the Lua scripting system and spawning. Just going to read the exact wording just so I don't get it wrong. I want to see Lee do infinite wave spawning, or spawning off an item in waves. Right, so you want to be able to... Okay, now there's 2 ways you can interpret that. You can have lots of characters. Actually, what we'll do first is launch the software, because staring at a web page for 6 minutes isn't the most exciting thing. So there's 2 ways to do spawning. The first one I've already covered, which is basically the idea you can hide entities until the time comes to spawn them. For example, let's say you was in a level where you started generally here. You walked along this path and you turned. And you walked along here, and then this is where you encountered your first bunch of bad guys. Normally what you would do is you'd select, say, this guy, drop him in, you'd click properties, and there's a statistic called spawn at start that you'd set to no. That means when the game starts, this guy won't even be visible. He will be in the void. And because you've actually modified his entity property and then clicked apply changes, you can then extract him from the scene, hold down shift, and then paste down lots of versions of him. And let's we'll paste down 12. And then we use a start marker. Not at the beginning, I don't want to go all the way back there. And then I'll put down the start marker, and then I will press I will press test game. And as the game starts, you notice all the characters aren't there, they're completely gone. See, I can't even walk through the space where they sort of non-corporeally exist. The idea is that you can spawn all these guys in a flash, and the way you do that is check out what their name is. They're all called Shotgun Soldier, every single one of them. So what we can do is create what's called a trigger zone and drop this in here. So when we cross this grey area, all these characters are going to appear. And all we've got to do for that is when player in zone, which means you've used the zone, you activate the entity called Shotgun Soldier. Apply those changes. And because they're all called Shotgun Soldier, let's see what happens. Always remember, save early, save often. You never know when something horrible is going to happen to your computer. And we're going to run it. And we're going to run through that grey area. Now hopefully, my calculations are correct. You get a nice little sound effect. And they all start shooting me. And I better start backtracking, because I don't think I can attack them, considering I don't even have a weapon. So that's one way to spawn. That's where you can save your performance of your computer. You can basically keep the game running with all these hidden, and then only at a certain particular element in the game where you actually switch them all on, they'll come attacking you, kill them all, and then they'll go on to your next wave. And in order to make sure that your next wave doesn't spawn with the first wave, one way of doing that, extract, put him here, go into properties, and maybe call him Shotgun Soldier 2. Apply changes, and then once you've got this guy, extract him, and then maybe 6 more of this guy. And similarly, just like we did with this one, we create another trigger zone here. We stretch it across the road. And I've already forgotten what the name is. And even though I could remember it, it's best to cut and paste the actual name from the entity. That way, if you do any typos, it won't screw up your game logic. So now what we can do, in fact, also I'm going to give myself a little bit more health, because I'm trying to run through 15 enemies and I don't think I'll survive. So I'll give myself 10,000 health. And for better fun, I'm going to give myself a shotgun with plenty of ammo. With that in place and a save level, I can then click test game. As you may know, we have a meeting, an internal team meeting once a month, and it's just finished, just only half an hour ago in fact. And we were talking about test game. And a very interesting idea arrived, which is, let's just run past this. Watch the trigger the second lot. There you go. So that's what I demonstrated. You can create waves and you keep them all hidden. The interesting thing we was actually talking about in the strategy meeting, you see the test game button? We've actually come up with a rather nifty idea. But when you click that button, the test game starts immediately. So there's no wait time, it's not building any assets or resources. As soon as you click that test game button, it runs the game immediately. So watch out for that in the future. I think it'll be a really cool feature. Or if you're listening to this broadcast from the future, maybe a year from now, it probably already works. You'll probably already click the test game button and it runs the game instantly, and you will be none the wiser. But I'm speaking from October 2015, and right now I click the test game button and I have to wait 40 seconds for it to actually build the game, especially if its game's quite complicated. Something can be quite quick if there's nothing on the level, but usually levels have lots of things in it in test game. It just takes forever. So that's one way of doing it. spawning all these guys. There is one more way, actually. There is another way. I'll start a new level, and I'm not sure this is going to work. In fact, I'm pretty sure it won't work, but I certainly have had it working in the past. Whether it works today is really down to your engineering in Lua. I'll drop one character down. We already know it's called Shotgun Soldier, but we're going to need that name anyway. So we copy it like that, and then what we do again, we trigger start position, and we also have a trigger zone like so. Works in a very similar way as before. Properties, if you pass through the zone, activate Shotgun Soldier. And I'm going to show you what that script does in a little while. I just want to make sure that this scenario works fine. And you know why it won't? Because we haven't actually told this particular entity to hide at start. It will actually start right away. So we set spawn at start to null. And then we click apply changes, very important, but we are thinking of getting rid of that button. It seems rather redundant. In the history of me using entity properties, I've never had to click cancel. So instead of seeing it, we don't see it, then we run over the trigger zone, he appears, he turns around, he sees us, and starts shooting, and then voila. So I'm going to give myself a weapon. I'm going to set myself to 10,000 health. I'm going to have an Uzi. Where's my Uzi? And I'm going to give myself lots of ammo for my Uzi. Save that. Now what happens with player in zone is once you've triggered it, that should be it. It only triggers it once. And to prove that, the idea with actually activating an entity is it issues, I think it issues a spawn command, but we're actually going to find out. So it issues a spawn command, and then we kill said spawned enemy. So he's there. Now if we run back through this trigger zone, will it trigger that entity again, or is it done? Yeah, it's done. So the technique I wanted to demonstrate is that if we actually look at the script for this, playerinzone.lua, and go to the script bank. Now this is where you'll find all the scripts for Game Guru, the script bank. And we look for player in zone under P, player in zone, and we look at the script itself. Interesting, isn't it? Activate if used. So we're not actually issuing any spawn command for E, we're just activating it. And I think there's some built-in code actually. There's an automatic, sort of an auto-magical feature that if an entity is hidden, as in it's not been spawned at the start of the level, and you activate that entity, it will auto-spawn it, which is pretty cool. But I want to try something else. I want to see if this command called spawn works. But I don't quite know if spawn is indeed a command because there's so many of them these days. So I'm going to go to global.lua, which tells me not only all the globals, variables I can use, but all the global commands as well. And I'm pretty sure there is a command called spawn. There isn't a command called spawn. Now isn't that revealing? So what is it? Oh, there is. Wonder why I didn't find it. So spawn with a single parameter E. E is denoting the entity that I want to spawn. And I've actually wrote it into my player in zone. I am now actually in danger of corrupting my original script. So any other level in Game Guru that you load that uses playerinzone.lua, it will do something different because I'm just hacking this code in, and I don't really want to do that. So this is how you solve it. You go and copy player in zone, and you give it a new name, player in zone, and spawn. Yes. So we give it a new name, we open it up, make sure that the file name is equating to the function names of that, and we don't edit this, that's not good, so we copy that and then undo everything so there's no changes there. And now we're going to do spawn. I can see a problem, maybe you can see it too. E actually denotes the zone I'm in, not that entity. Activate if used is different. It actually finds out what's in if used and activates that. So really the spawn, if you think about it, it's kind of in the wrong place, isn't it? The spawn E needs to be elsewhere. It needs to be over there somewhere. I'm going to show you some really clever trick now, what E actually means. If I just save that out, because I'm going to persevere, change the Lua script from player in zone to my new one, player in zone and spawn, and shotgun soldier, which is now completely redundant because we're not really wanting to use it. So if we delete that for now, just to prove the activate isn't the one that's responsible for this next mechanism. And what you can do is hover over this entity. Zoom in on him a bit. Notice you in the bottom of the screen you've got entity edit mode, rotate entity, enter equals find floor wall. This is the next bit, entity. It's 1 with an object number of 70,004. The number you're interested in is 1. That means it's entity index 1, and that's the number that's stored in the variable E in the script and what is normally passed in. If we actually hover over the zone, you'll notice that's 3. That's entity index 3. So this will never really work if you start adding and subtracting entities, but it's just one little bit of a insight into how you can directly access individual objects if you wanted to. So we know this is entity index 1 because we can see 1 there in between entity and 70,004. So what you can do is just replace spawn E with spawn 1. It's actually going to trigger a spawn on entity index 1, which is that character. And I bet you're wondering, well, why are you doing all this? What's the whole point of this experience? Well, I'm going to try and show you, because I think there is code in the spawn command that resurrects characters, which will be cool. So we spawn him. Remember, we removed if used field, so it spawned because we did spawn 1. It knew that was 1. So now we're going to do a bit of combat. A bit unfair considering I've got 10,000 health and his shotgun. Ha! Now we're going to walk back over the zone. Now, what happens if you issue a spawn command on an entity that you've just shot with an Uzi? It looks like nothing happens. And there's many reasons for that. Now you notice there's no sound when we're running over it. That's interesting, isn't it? Usually there's a kind of a click noise, and there isn't here. So, just so I'm going to be quite clear about this, I'm going to create another trigger zone so we can trigger something like a secondary. And I'm also going to keep it within the path too, just in case I want to run around this trigger zone. So we've used the script there, we can use it again here, with the certainty of knowing we can get a fresh call to what's inside our commands for that particular condition. Save the map. We're now going to run through the first one, kill the character, and then try and run through the second one, which has now been marked. So we'll run through the first. We'll run around this second trigger zone. There's no chance of killing it. I have a chance of course, doing some damage. Now, if I run through the second one, it's now going to issue a spawn command on that guy. So there you go. I've just found a bug, people. One thing I should mention. Ha! Poor little lemon. And I actually recognise what this bug is. One thing I should mention, and I probably haven't mentioned it so far, is this entire Twitch broadcast is actually using the new internal, faster C++ version. I've taken to using it as a sort of general background test to make sure that all our efforts to upgrade the Game Guru system from a Basic Pro code base to a C++ code base doesn't sort of inherit a lot of bugs and change the functionality of the software. So I've been very insistent on using the latest internal version every opportunity I can. And that issue that you saw where it was sort of doing this pose but not actually animating is something I've recognised from a previous optimization actually, where an object that gets further away, like a character that animates, will use a more efficient way of rendering when it's in the distance. But of course, what hasn't been anticipated is that you can have a Lua command which re-triggers the regrowth of that character, because that character thought it had finished its work and it just left the building, and I brought it back unwillingly. So an extra line of code just to tell the character, you are now alive again, please continue to animate. And that's something that I hope, Ravy, you're listening to this. And I've just found another of those strange character not animating bugs, so you can add that to your very short list of things to do before we release our performance update. And that demonstrates the two ways in which you can actually spawn characters. You can put big groups of them together and spawn them under a simple activate entity name, or, which is even more resource friendly, you can have one character, like a zombie, and continually respawn it either from trigger zones or from timers or from conditions within your game, thanks to the Lua scripting, anything you like. So, and you can even change the position of those entities as well, so you can sort of reuse the same zombie throughout your game if you wanted to. So that's spawning in two flavours. There was another request that HUD graphics. Now, how much time have we got? We've got a couple of minutes left. I like to keep some formality to the twitches and sort of keep them to about 30 minutes. That's why I don't witter on too much, and you can get sort of the meat. And it also means, after half an hour you kind of want to stop listening to me drone on and get back to game creation, which is a hell of a lot more fun. And the game I want to show to demonstrate HUD graphics is Cartoon Antics. And if you're familiar with Game Guru and you've loaded a few of the sample games, you'll have found this one rather cute and quirky. We figured instead of just shotguns and explosions and grenades and mayhem, what if you could actually have a nice fun kids game where you can collect coins and but of course we couldn't resist putting rabbits that are armed with laser pistols. We just figured, why not? So we've got some nice cutesy music, nice cutesy background, nice cutesy scene with cutesy things to do, and a shotgun, well, a laser gun. Now the thing I want to show you is the collect of the coins decal at the top of the screen. That's actually a HUD graphic. You notice it sticks to the screen like glue? That's cool. That means if we can do that, if we can stick collect the coins graphic on our screen, does that not also mean you could put your own graphics on the screen? For example, when you walk into a room, you could have like a piece of parchment display on the screen showing the plot of what you have to do in this particular room, or you could show a security panel and how to get past it. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate. The Cartoon Antics level actually has that built in. I bet you're wondering, how was that even possible? Where is the drag and drop where I can drag in a HUD decal? And those are all great questions, and the answer is you can't drag those in. That is all Lua script power. And in order to run a Lua script, you need to have an entity to trigger it. And if you notice, there's now two trigger zones overlapping my start marker. If I just move my start marker to here and my game started, it wouldn't be able to run the scripts inside these two trigger zones because I'm not inside it. As I move that there, it will actually run the trigger zone and the script inside it. And if I move this one, I'll be running both scripts. So if we look at the script for this one, it looks like it's running a script called Stories, Cartoon Antics, Coin Count Start.lua. So it's running that script all the time. As long as this script exists in our world, even if it's over here, it will actually start it and run it all the time. Let's look at this one. That's the start marker. That's there. Let's have a look at this one. Music in zone. That's a lot easier. That says just trigger some music when you enter it. So really what you could do is just have that. This actually will still run its script. You don't actually have to start in it. So we could just put this anywhere we want. But this is the bit we're interested in. Stories, cartoon, antics, coin count start.lua. And as I said before, we can go to our files. From here we can start locating scripts. Go to script bank, stories, cartoon antics, coin count start.lua, which is completely and totally and utterly empty. Definitely not the HUD we were sort of expecting. But there's some more scripts in here. Let's have a look. Coin display. This is more like it. And coin collect, which looks like it will detect when the player is within 80 units, play a sound, increase a coin count, and destroy said coin. So we don't want that. We don't want coin count start, which I've just realised what it does. It creates a global called coin count. That's the only purpose for this script, to reset a global variable, but we don't need that too. So some entity out there in the world is got coin display.lua in it. And it could be anything. It could be a mushroom, it could be a trigger zone hiding under a hill somewhere. And you know what? I don't really need to worry about where it is. All I know is it is being called. Let's have a quick look at that. Is that it? No, it isn't. That just activates all the evil rabbits. So I guess that wasn't it. Okay. Well, the good news is we did actually find the script and we know it runs. So I want to explain exactly what it is you're looking at. Got a couple of minutes left. I think this probably deserves a whole Twitch broadcast of its own because it's quite a powerful set of commands. But let's look at it from a pseudocode point of view. I'll give you the basics. There are two functions that are called with a Lua script. There's the init function. That gets launched once. We call this only once when the game first starts. Good opportunity for you to initialize your entities, set up variables, search for waypoints, all this kind of thing. In this particular case, we're going to issue a command called load images. And what that does, it loads all the graphics inside the folder called cartoon. And it starts loading them at index 0. So remember, this is a global command. If you issued this command called load images blob, 0, it will overwrite all the images that you loaded with cartoon, 0. But if you knew that there was only 5 images in the cartoon folder, you could put 0 and then it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you had another load images command in another script called blob and started it, 5. Then it would start loading it from image 5, and those are your image indexes, which we'll get to a little bit later down here. But before I do that, let's see if we can find where this folder cartoon is, because for the life of me I can't remember where I put it. Let's guess images. So script bank, images, yeah, this is it. So you notice the name cartoon is the same name in load images, so this is the folder, and it looks like there's 2. And it's 000.png and 001. So let's have a look at the 2 images that we're loading in. Yep, that's the one that displays at the top of the screen. What does 001 do? Oh, cool! An extra graphic. I actually didn't know King Guru had this graphic. How awesome is that? I think I know what this was. When you collect 100 coins, that graphic would change from collect the coins to you win. And it might actually do that. Maybe I haven't actually bothered to collect 100 coins. So I apologise to the diligent level creator who created this. As you can imagine, I'm the one who didn't actually create it. But without further ado, once you've loaded the images, which is done in runtime, when the game starts, so this is when you can load all the stuff in. And you can probably do some clever things. Remember, Lua, you can modify script strings in real time. So you can actually dynamically select what you want to load in at script time. So that'd be pretty cool. But the coin display underscore main, this gets called all the time. Every time your game loops round and round and round, 60 times a second, it will call this function. And in this function, we issue 2 simple commands. Set image position. It sets a generic position for X and Y coordinates. X being across the screen and Y being down the screen. And as you can imagine, in our game, the graphic was at the top of the screen. If we just run it again, and I'm just going to cover that because I'm rather paranoid, just in case you actually do need to start inside the zone, although I very much doubt it. That script will run regardless. So when we run the game, you'll actually see at the top of the screen you've got the HUD graphic, the 000.png, and it starts 50 units across and 10 units down. It starts 10 units down because it's actually positioned it from the center of the image, not its top left corner. It's actually from the center of the screen. Although, in saying that, I've just realized what it is. The 50 and 100 isn't pixel coordinates, it's percentage coordinates. So 50 actually means 50% of the screen across, and 10 means 10% of the screen down, which will put the image exactly where you can see it in the game. If we switch back to the script, the next image you see is show image 0. Of course, 0 being this particular index. We've got 000.png and 001.png. So the 0 actually refers to 000.png, and it shows it at that position. We then have some helpful text, and you can change the size of that, that's no problem. And of course we saw in the other script that coin count is incremented every time you collect a coin and the coin is destroyed. It looks like when you get to 100 coins collected, it will hide image 1, freeze the player so the player can't move anymore, set a new image position to 50-50, which is 50% of the way across the screen, 50% of the way down the screen, and then it shows image 1. So it will actually show you that other I win sort of thing. It looks like then, based on you still got 100 coin count, if you press a key, it then unfreezes the player, it hides the image at the top, it finishes the level, destroys this script and the entity associated with it, and for as long as you're not actually destroying the script, it says press E to close or escape to end level. I don't want to collect 100 coins, it will take too long during this video, so I'm going to change the script. I'm going to say if you collect more than 10 coins, we'll start all this. Yeah? So that'll be a little bit easier. So if I save that, shouldn't really have done that, you see, because that's actually it's a script part of Game Guru, and if any other levels use this script, you've just screwed up their logic. Always a good idea to make a copy of the script, point that entity to the new script name before you make these sorts of changes. But I think I should be quite safe. I mean, who uses the cartoon antics level anyway? So with that save, I can always change it back, of course. One thing to mention is if you change the script, it won't immediately take effect within the game. You kind of have to come out and go back in. The reason for that is at this stage, this part here, it loads in the latest version of that script and then activates it. And it only does it here. See, we don't do it inside the game loop because constantly loading lower files would just slow down your game. So now remember, we're going to have to collect 10 coins and then we can see that's 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now when we get to 10, we should see some HUD activity. Amazing! Nothing whatsoever. Maybe I have to collect 11. I think I said greater than 10. So if I collect this one. Yes! So now you've got exactly what we saw in the script. You hid the 0 one, you showed the second one, the image index 1, which equates to 001.png, and the huge press E to close or exit end level, and then you've ended the level. Now normally if it was a safe standalone game, it would actually go to game over or game congratulations and stuff like that. But because you're in test game, there's no reason to go to a game over screen, so it just lets you carry on, play test other bits of your level, that sort of thing. So that's a really quick introduction to what are effectively only 3 commands. Loading the images in, setting a general position of what you would eventually do next, which is to show the image at that position. And as you can see, you can show different images at different positions, because I presume, I mean, should we play with this? I mean, really, when you think about it, hide image should be hide image 0 before you set a new position and show image 1. And then when you press that, it has that image. Sort of kind of the wrong way around. But at the moment you can only really display one image, so that's one of the limitations. In a future implementation, we are hoping that instead of having a standard generic position for an image and then showing that, you'll actually be able to have it all in one, so you could set the image and the position and maybe some other effects, maybe a scale effect, all inside one command, so you can actually do a lot more with it. But this will certainly get you further along if you have no idea how to do HUD images. And hopefully it was a bit insightful. And like I said, if you get a little bit stuck, then use the cartoon antics script, sort of point you in the right direction, and certainly try some experiments like changing these images or adding more images, or 002, 003, or even create a new folder out here, and then you can change this at the top, so you can change that to the name of the new folder you've just created. I've just changed this back to what it was originally, just so I'm not going to mess it up for some future demonstration. And there it is. So I think that is the two things that I missed from previous broadcasts, showing how HUD graphics work and the two ways you can actually spawn entities within your game. And we're going to let Ravy do all this because he's modelling and character creator and all this kind of stuff. So this is the thread that you can use to post requests if you want to see more. It's in the Game Guru website forums product chat, and there's a sticker called Twitch Sessions. Please send us your requests. So if you want me to talk about something else in Game Guru, just post it here, and I'll definitely check it out either before my Twitch broadcast or, as the case is on this occasion, during the broadcast. So I always ask, and I really should have asked at the beginning and I didn't, so I really do apologise for this, that if you've got any questions about Game Guru or you want me to demonstrate something in any remaining time I have, you can actually post it live in the Twitch broadcast session with a question mark on the end. Now, because I actually didn't request that at the start, we actually have an entire chat board free of question marks, which means I get to go home. But I'm going to leave it a couple of minutes just to see if anyone does have any questions on what they've seen, if I rushed over something a little bit too quick and needs a little bit more explanation on spawning or on editing scripts so you can actually put HUD graphics up there. You may have noticed actually back in stories there is Big Escape and more scripts here. It's really a nice idea to sort of separate your scripts based on any projects you're working on. And what we do at the Game Guru team is to use the storage folder, and then anything where we want some really clever, unique scripts, we put them inside our own folders that have the same name as the level. It keeps it nice and organised rather than dumping everything into one almighty script bank, making things to find very difficult. So in the Big Escape level, doesn't deal with HUD graphics, but as you can see, there's some rather unique scripts going on, like there's a time charge activity where you've got to detonate 5 explosives before you can open a gate to move on to the game. So you can actually see some rather advanced game logic if you wanted to explore that. So that's kind of what that was. So we've just crawled up to 40 minutes past the hour. There's no questions, which is great. It means I can shoot off. And so please do make use of the forum. Post any questions. I think perhaps if there is no further posts, I will cajole Ravy into doing a Twitch on the Blender modeler and how to get characters into the character kit, or at least character parts into the character kit. And for those of you who want a quick look before I leave, I'm going to show you the character kit, which is pretty cool. I also remember that this is actually the C++ version. I'm going to close my eyes. It might not work. Preparing character creator. Frontier stuff now. Yes, it works. So this is the character creator. You can make your own characters for your game, and we've made it really super simple. You just click on a head and you can change the head to a woman's head. He's got a woman's head, my lord. You can change the body to a woman's body. And then you can change other attributes as well, such as head attachments. So we can go for a ponytail. We can change facial hair. We'll give her a nice beard. And we already explored body by clicking directly on the model, but you can also select it from here. You've also got skin tone. You can have the head attachment, can have pink hair, facial hair could be the same colour as well, sort of a pink thing. Upper clothes tint, now currently it's defaulting to what the texture uses, but you can actually tint it to whatever you want. Same with the jeans, let's go for some nice denims, and then you can tint the shoes, so we'll go for some nice yellow shoes. And that's really cool. And then you can give her a weapon so she can defend herself. I'm going to give her an RPG so she can actually shoot rockets at me. I'm going to save this character. Well, I'd like to save this character, but as you see, I think that's about the time the editor falls over. As I said, we're still working on an internal version of the C++ system. It's been a mammoth task converting what was about 70,000 lines of code over to its C++ equivalent for the benefit of increased performance. But you can imagine that had I saved the character, it could be selected from the user character creator folder, and then you can drop that character into your world, and she'd run around with her pink hair and beard shooting rockets at you, and it's all much fun. So there's a question mark, so I'm just going to read this out. It's from Scorpion Arachnid. Just a problem I have with sound wabs. I need to cut the address down to show only soundbankname.wav. If let to C : it does not work. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You cannot use absolute paths when specifying sound files. It can only use relative files. And I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that. So, a great question. And I'll show you really quickly how to specify your own WAVs. So the easiest way I can think about it is to start a start marker. Then I can drop in a trigger zone. And the trigger zone is yay wide, and we can recognize it because there's a bit of a floor here. Like so. And then we click properties. This is where you specify your WAV file. Now notice where it is. It's not got an absolute path starting with C:. It's actually starting with the name audio bank, and you'll notice that is a relative address to the files folder. Everything's referenced from the files folder. Even though you launch this executable, the first thing the app does, it jumps into files, and this is where it's going to gorge itself on all the media you might have. An audio bank is the first folder in this list, and from this you can then find any of the WAV files that we've provided for you, and we've provided quite a few to get you started. But if you wanted to create one of your own, for the sake of argument, let's say we this one. Let's say I made this in a sound editor. What you could do is just create a new folder, call it user, so it's a user file, user generated file, and let's say you called it something like whoop, like so. All you've got to do is make sure your WAVs are in here in the right format. I think I don't have the correct tool for this. It would be under SoundRec. I usually use SoundRec, but basically it has to be a mono if it's a 3D sound, but it's a stereo. But make sure it's a 44 megahertz sample. Don't make it any lower; it will just be a low quality one. And make sure it's a 16-bit one too, 16-bit WAV. So once all those things are done, all you've really got to do is go to the sound for the particular entity you want to use as your trigger. And you'll notice it when you click the little icon to the right, it automatically opens you in a relative way. It opens you inside Audio Bank. So then you can go to User, and then select Whoop, Open, click Apply Changes, and then when we run the game and run through that gravelly bit, it should play the Whoop sound, which is actually just a modified health sound, but if you created your own WAV file, it would play that. So we run across. So that's the sound health would make, but you can actually put any sort of WAV you want in there. And yeah, I would use SoundRec and record a sound, but I'm also doing a Twitch broadcast and I don't know what effect that might have, and I don't even remember where I put it, so sorry about that. So that's how you would add your own WAV into the folder structure and then reference it within an entity. So I hope that was a useful answer, so thanks for that question. And I think that's me done. So I'm going to end this broadcast now. Again, there will be another broadcast next Wednesday at 4 PM British Summer Time until we switch back to GMT. It will probably be Ravy talking about Blender and character parts, how you can add more character parts to Character Creator. Or if somebody posts in the forum, as I pointed out earlier, then we'll probably talk about that, because it would probably take priority. In the sense that advice that's relevant to more people would win out over advice that's relative to 1 or 2 people, because I don't think everyone's going to be into the modelling. Most will be into the dropping things in and using the library and doing that sort of thing. But you know, if nobody posts, then this is what Ray's going to talk about, whether he likes to or not. So thanks for your kind attention. I'm now going to squirrel away and carry on my DirectX 11 coding, which is great fun so far. So until next week, I shall say goodbye. Goodbye!